Have you ever heard of something called the middle child syndrome? Well, some people seem to think that the middle child of the family usually gets a little bit lesser attention or even sometimes neglected when they are growing up. And as a result, they do turn out a little bit different than their other siblings. Well, for me myself, I am the middle child of my family. I wouldn't go so far to say that I was neglected, but I definitely did turn out a little bit different than my other siblings. One of them is an engineer, one of them is in the financial sector, and me, well, I'm reviewing cars for a living. Now you may be thinking where on earth I'm going with all of this. This is the Mini Aceman and it's the new middle child of the Mini family. And they've flown us all the way out here to Copenhagen to really find out what it's like. Like me, the Mini Aceman definitely isn't neglected, especially when it comes to styling. In fact, I say it's actually quite the direct opposite because you see, the Mini Cooper and the Countryman, they're both existing products with an established look. So even though it's a new generation of cars, they don't usually stray too far away from their already familiar looks. While the Mini Aceman, on the other hand, is a completely brand new model. So the designers don't really have any prior models to take inspiration from. So they really had to work extra hard to design something that is completely unique to its own. And the result is this, a compact crossover that, in my opinion, really took on the best bits from both of its siblings. It's got the upright stance and the black banding from the Countryman to really give it a more rugged, a more active lifestyle sort of appearance. But at the same time, it's also taken on the Cooper's youthfulness. And as a whole, I think this car really just gives off a very fun vibe, especially in this Rebel Red colour. And you know what else is fun? The fact that you can select your own daytime running light signature, because driving a Mini really is all about showing off your own personality and your own character. Well, for me, this here is my favourite because it just makes the Aceman look a little bit friendlier. In terms of size, the Mini Aceman sits right in between the Cooper hatch and the Countryman SUV in what the brand says is their first crossover in the premium small car segment. And they're really not kidding when they say it's a small car because it's just about the same size as a Honda WRV or Perodua Artiva. Now, even though this is a brand new model, I think it still looks very much like a Mini because it's got all of the Mini iconic touches done just right, like the three-tier styling that really separates the body, the glass house and the roof, and also, of course, that familiar Mini face right up in front. But if I have just one thing to nitpick on, I think the angles on the front headlights really just makes it look a little bit too chunky if you're looking at it straight on. Now you may say that I'm a little biased here, given that I'm also a middle child, but I think this unique design isn't necessarily bad as a lot of you seem to think. It's a little bit different compared to its siblings, sure, but get this whole charismatic simplicity design language actually began with the Aceman when it was first unveiled in concept form back in 2022. It's this car that is meant to help lead Mini into a whole new electric era. And when you can manage to come up with a brand new design that still incorporates the iconic Mini touches, I would call that a success. Like all new Mini models, the cabin of the Aceman is also built around their new design language called Charismatic Simplicity. That means everything is pared back and reduced to its core Mini touches, which are, according to Mini, an easy-to-handle steering wheel, a central OLED display, and their signature toggle bar below it, all modelled after the original Mini's interior but with a modern twist. There are a few small differences on the inside. For instance, you have its own door handle design and the dashboard is also a little bit more upright because this is a crossover, which means you also sit a little bit taller. But aside from this, the rest of the cabin really is just like the Mini Cooper and even the Mini Countryman, with all of the same fun touches like the designer straps on the dashboard and the steering wheel, all of these fun colours, and all of these very unique tactile points to really bring out the character of this car. In fact, there's even a projector light system for your ambient lighting to give this car a little bit more character at night. The main difference is of course in the back because this is a bigger car, so you do get proper rear seats with proper knee room. But this is still a very small car, so maybe sit 4 instead of 5 adults back here, and you also don't get all the nice things that you usually expect from bigger cars like center air vents or an armrest for the rear passenger. Now you may be sensing a pattern here, but yes, even in the way that it drives, this car has truly inherited the best of both worlds from both of its siblings. Now compared to the Mini Cooper, well, this being the slightly heavier and slightly bigger car, it is of course not as go-kart-like when it comes to its handling, but I think it still does pretty well around the bends. The front end is super agile, the car turns wherever you point your steering wheel, and in fact you also do get quite a lot of feedback coming through the steering wheel. And when you pair it to just the right amount of body roll, I think most people will consider this car a very fun car to drive. But for me, the biggest improvement in the way that it drives compared to the Mini Cooper is really the fact that it has also picked up on some of the more grown-up aspects when it comes to driving that it has taken from the Mini Countryman. It is more well-behaved on the highways, and even in the city streets, it's also less bumpy. The way that it rides over the humps and the bumps really just shows off a much more mature characteristics when it comes to driving. So what all of that means is really the Mini Aceman is a very comfortable and easy car to drive in almost any driving situation. And when you want to have fun, you can still have fun on the back roads. On that topic, the Mini Aceman in the SE variant that we are driving here is powered by a single motor on the front axle, making 218 horsepower and 313 Nm of torque. And if you remember correctly, that is the exact same as the Mini Cooper SE, but since it's a slightly bigger car, 0 to 100 here is also slightly slower at 7.1 seconds. For a car this size, I think that is just the right amount of power, because really when you gun it, it can still get you into trouble. Like all front-wheel drive Minis, when you put your foot down, you can still feel a little bit of the torque steer feeling on the front end, and it's also enough to get the wheels squealing when you truly dart your way from a standstill. When you're just driving around the city streets, the instant torque and the instant reaction really just makes this car feel super zippy to dart around all of these tight city streets. And the best part, on modern mini electric cars, they finally added in brake blending. So driving this car really just feels like any other car. And when you're trying to convince someone to go electric for the first time, I think that is exactly what you need. And I think that point really just sums up what this car is all about. Because on paper, it might be the middle child or even the odd one out. But having driven this car for the whole day today, I really do think that this is the right Mini for most people. For one, it has the right amount of range for most people at 405 km on paper and maybe about 350 in the real world. It also has more space than the Mini Cooper, making it more livable in day-to-day life, but at the same time also not being too big like what the Countryman is right now. But most importantly, I think it still drives like a Mini without sacrificing any comfort. And at 221,000 or 214,000 if you opt for the standard 2-year warranty, I think what you're getting is truly a very well-rounded car that can really do almost anything for the everyday Joe. Well, that is if you can get used to the way it looks. So what do you think of the Mini Aceman? Is it the new ace in the pack, or just another attempt to win over the treasured crossover buyers? Well, unlike most of our international first drive reviews, you can actually try out the car for yourselves right now. So why not head on over to your nearest showroom for a test drive, come back to the video and let us know what you think in the comments below.